performer was one of the great jazz guitarists, a natural continuation of Charlie Christian, whose seductive use of octaves became his signature. This jazz guitarist's inherent talent and distinct tone gained him distinction as one of the most prominent jazz performers of the 20th century. He enjoyed enormous commercial success in his last years. The centerpiece of today's video is all about Wes Montgomery. Before we start, let's be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push the notification bell to be sure you won't miss on any more uploads. Now without further ado, let's cue that intro. Born John Leslie on March 6, 1923 in Indianapolis, Indiana, into a musically inclined family. According to NPR, the nickname Wes was a child's abbreviation for his middle name, Leslie. His family was huge, and his parents separated early in the children's lives. Montgomery and his brothers relocated to Columbus, Ohio with their father and went to Champion High School. His elder brother, Monk, dropped out of school to sell coal and ice, eventually accumulated enough money to buy Wes a 4-string tenor guitar from a pawn shop in 1935. Although he received his first instrument as a kid, Montgomery's passion for the guitar did not blossom until he was 19 years old and married. Montgomery spent a lot of time playing his guitar once he initially bought it. He later disregarded its effectiveness, claiming that he had to start again when he received his first 6-string some years later. He and his siblings returned to Indianapolis. By 1943, Montgomery had found work as a welder and decided to settle down and married. At a dance with his wife, he heard his first Charlie Christian album. This encouraged him to pick up the guitar at the age of 19 and spend a year training himself to play by copying Christian's records. Although he had no intention of becoming a musician, he felt compelled to study after purchasing a guitar. Montgomery had no formal education and could not read music. He quickly established his own way of plucking the strings with his right thumb, partly to reduce the loudness for neighbors and because he found it uncomfortable to use a pick. Although unorthodox, the softer and deeper tone it generated remains one of his hallmarks. And 6 months after learning to play the guitar, Montgomery was recruited to perform at an Indianapolis bar. By the age of 20, he was performing in Indianapolis bars at night, imitating Christian solos while working during the day at a milk plant. In 1948, while on tour in Indianapolis, Lionel Hampton was seeking for a guitarist, and after seeing Montgomery play like Christian, he recruited him. Montgomery spent 2 years with the Hamptons band. Fear prevented him from flying with the rest of the band, so he drove from city to city, town to town, while his bandmates marveled at his endurance. When he arrived at a club, he immediately called his wife and family. He had the opportunity to play with Charles Mingus, Milt Buckner, and Fats Navarro. He resumed performing in the local bars, this time with the Eddie Higgins Trio and the Roger Jones Quintet, which included Eddie Higgins, Walter Perkins, and Leroy Vinegar. Buddy and Monk Montgomery founded the Master Sounds and got a deal with Dick Baca Pacific Jazz, as Montgomery joined them for a recorded session in 1957, which also featured Freddie Hubbard. Pacific Jazz published some of the tracks on the album. The Montgomery brothers. He formed the Johnson and Montgomery Quintet, which included his brothers Buddy and Mike, as well as saxophonist Alonzo Pookie Johnson, in the manner of George Shearing. The band auditioned for Arthur Godfrey and recorded with Quincy Jones. Montgomery and his siblings relocated to the West after spending time at a club between 1955 and 1957. He supported his wife and 7 children by working as a welder during the day and performing at 2 clubs at night until well into the morning. And he was a smoker who had blackouts while juggling his hectic schedule. Cannonball Adderley, George Shearing, and Lenny Tristano were all in the crowd at one performance. Adderley was so delighted with Montgomery's guitar performance that he convinced Orrin Keepnews to sign him to Riverside. Keepnews was also influenced by a glowing review by Gunther Schuller. After 20 years of playing, Montgomery recorded his debut album as a leader, a dynamic new sound in New York City. In 1960, he recorded the incredible jazz guitar of Wes Montgomery with Tommy Flanagan and Percy. He joined his brothers in California to perform as the Montgomery Brothers at the Monterey Jazz Festival. Buddy and Mike had joined with Fantasy and recorded the Montgomery Brothers and Groove Yard after the Master Sounds had split up. Montgomery recorded so much guitar as a leader, and while visiting his brothers, he got the opportunity to perform with John Coltrane's group in San Francisco. In 1961, work was getting harder to find. A tour in Canada led to the album. The Montgomery Brothers in Canada, then the band broke up. Montgomery returned to Indianapolis to work in his trio with Ryan. Keepnews sent him back to California to record a live album with Johnny Griffin, Gordon Kelly, Paul Chambers, and Jimmy Cobb. Their performance became the album Full House. This was followed by Fusion, his first instrumental pop album. Montgomery departed Riverside Records for Verve Records in 1963. After recording 2 additional organ trio jazz sessions, A Boss Guitar and Portrait of Wes, Montgomery began working with producer Creed Taylor at Verve, and Taylor continued to produce Montgomery for the remainder of his life. The Johnny Pay's instrumental pop album. Moving West was his first Verve release. It swiftly sold over 100,000 copies, repositioning Montgomery in the recording business as a crossover performer capable of high album sales. Montgomery made his last 2 small group jazz albums Verve, although his primary interest was on reproducing contemporary pop songs as instrumentals. And Montgomery was particularly successful with his interpretations of California Dreamin', Tequila, and Going Out of My Head. Montgomery's biggest radio hit after joining L&M was a cover of the Association's pop tune, Wendy. Montgomery's popularity with these recordings led to offers to play on prominent US television series such as The Hollywood Palace and The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Montgomery passed of a heart attack at his Indianapolis home on June 15, 1968, at the age of 45. Wes was one of the most creative musicians of all time. He was a beast of improvisation. Taylor produced 10 Wes Montgomery albums during Montgomery's lifetime, 8 of which were aimed at the pop market. Now, before we go, I have a question for you all. What is your favorite song from Wes Montgomery?